Soon we're starting, before writing the tutorial or the program for the multi-dimensional arrays or two-dimensional arrays. Usually multi-dimensional, two-dimensional, it means X and Y. If you look at this before we start, looking at this one for instance, we've got values here. This is column row 1, row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and these are the columns in here. So in order to find, for instance, this number 214, 214 is this row, and that is the column. If we're looking for the index, remember the index starts from 0. So for the row, that will be 0, 1. And of course for the column, that's 0, 1, and 2. So that's 0, 1, and 2. So the index is 1 and 2. So this is two-dimensional. How do we do that? And how do you deal with that? Here it is. In order to create a multi-dimensional array, assume we've got an array called A, and it's two-dimensionals. You have two square brackets here, and they say it's the same, new int. The first bracket refers to the number of rows, and the second bracket refers to the number of columns, as it states here. So if we say, for instance, A 2, 3, that means that's the index, right? Index starts from 0, so that's 0, 1, 2. And 3, of course, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So that's an index, which is an integer value. A of 2, for instance, A of 2, so that's 0, 1, 2. This refers to the row number, right? To the row number, if I say A2. However, keep in mind, this is just an introduction. Keep in mind, if I say A, remember to find the length or number of elements. If I say A as this variable dot length, that is going to give me the number of rows, which is 5. However, if I say A and with any index here, for instance, A of 3, A of 1, A of 2, dot length is going to give me the number of columns. So keep in mind, if I've got only the name of the variable dot length, it's going to give me the number of rows. If I say A, then open bracket, and a number, which is the index dot length, is going to give me the number of columns. Sometimes what you do, you initialize only one of them. For instance, in here, I've got the multi-dimensional array, which is B. Say int is two-dimensionals. This is the rows, and this is columns. It's called B. Then say the new, similar, a new int. You put value in the first one and second one empty. That means you have 3 rows in this multi-dimensionals, but columns is not being stated as yet. So of course, soon if you haven't, so you have to accommodate how many columns in each row. So you start, because we have this is 3 elements, so of course that starts from 0 as the index, 0, 1, and 2. So if you say here P of 0, for instance, the first one, you can say how many elements. So as soon as you say new int 5, it means you have 5 columns in the first row. And then if you say B1, a new int 4, it means you have 4 columns in the second row, because in B1. And B2, it says a new int 2, that means you have 2 columns in the third row, because the rows start from 0, 1, and 2. If we say dot length, for instance, right, or you say in here, B00 is 10, that's the value actually where the index, the first one is 0 and second one is 0. If I say, for instance, B dot length, that is going to give me number of rows, so that's going to give me 3. However, if I say B1 dot length, is going to give me 4 in here. If I say B0 dot length, is going to give me the number of columns. This is basically the two dimensional or multi-dimensionals in here. So this is the same things. If we say this is an integer, and we need to define that in here, and we call, for instance, it's called distance. Hopefully I can insert something here to write it, and say this, and maybe write this one, move it here for a bit, and I'm going to say, for instance, I've got a variable here, it's called distance, for instance. So, and these are, of course, these are integers. So I can say int, and I call it distance, for instance. Of course, you can do this, 2, and then say, call it distance. That will be equal to a new int, and count on the numbers in here. Oops, I'm sorry. Sorry, in here. All right, we've got it in here. So that's how many elements in the rows here. 2, 4, 6. That's 2, 4, 6, and 7. Of course, that's going to be 7 here. Number of elements, 7. And the number of columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and of course 7 as well. Here it is. So you define them just like that. Now, when it's go index, remember you start with zeros. So if I say distance as a variable here, if I say distance and give, for instance, say 4 and 3. Which one is that? Look at that 4. That's the column 4. So start from 0, 1, 2, 3, and that's 4. So this is 4, Miami. Number 3. So that's 0, 1, 2, and 3. So the value is 6, 6, 1. 6, 6, 1. Here it is. So if I say system.out.println distance 4 and 3, that's referred to the 6, 6, 1. So 4 starts 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 0 is not because this value is 0, it's the index. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here it is 4. That's the 4. And of course the 3 that's a 0, 1, 2, and 3. So that's 6, 1, 1. And of course, if I say distance, and say, for instance, 3 and 6, that is going to give me, what's that going to be? If I look at this one, 3 and 6, so that's 0, 1, 2, and 3. And of course, 6, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's 810. So I hope you've got actually what that means for the index. Right, as we said, initializing, you can do it either this way or you can put the brackets after that. When say matrix 0, 0, it means where the row number, the first row and the first column, of course. Always remember, if you try to process the arrays, always use for statement. For two-dimensional, you have to use 2 for statements inside, which is going to be demonstrated in the tutorial. Now, if I say matrix, which is like int here, it should be int matrix, which is 2 arrays, and new int 5, 5. So that means 5 rows and 5 columns. As 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Of course, the index starts from 0 to 4, and number of rows here, there are the columns 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Start from 0, so it finishes at 4. So if I say, look at that, that refers to the number of elements. If I say matrix, that's the variable matrix, 2 and 1. So that's column 2, which is 0, 1, and 2. And of course, column 1, that's the row 2, 0, 1, 2. And the column 1, 0, and 1. So this is 2 and 1 equal to 7. So the value 7 would be here. If I say matrix on its own, matrix dot length, that is going to give me the number of rows, which is here, the first one, 5. If I say matrix and then a value 0, 1, any of these, and I say dot length, it's going to give me how many columns in here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, which is this one, the second one, and reality. You can, as demonstrated in the first single arrays, you can set data for that rather than putting numbers in here, like the number of elements, because the values here is not defined, so you have to put data there. If I say it's int, like that, and I put variable, call it array for instance, open curly bracket, and then open curly brackets, right? Says 1, 2, 3. When I close the bracket, it means this is the first row, the comma, and open the bracket, and there again, close the brackets, curly bracket, and so on. That, if I look in here, the system automatically knows how many rows and how many columns. So if I say array.length, that is going to give me how many rows? 1, 2, 3, and of course it's going to be 4, as stated here. If I said array, let me see, if I do it like this in here, array 0, which is this one, dot length, it says how many columns in here. So that's 1, 2, 3, which is like these three elements in here, 3 elements in here. That doesn't have to always to be the same, as we're gonna see it in a minute. If we look, this is all explanations. This is the same things for the arrays as in here. Looking at this, if we say array.length in here, look at this array. An array is not to be given the numbers, only data in here. Look at the open bracket and you close it here, and these curly brackets between them. Each curly bracket, when you open and close it, it represents a row. So this 1, 2, 3, and of course 4. So if I come here and say what is the value here, for instance, array.length, this is 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is going to be 4. If I say a array 0, which is that's index number 0, right? And so dot length, how many columns? This is the number of columns, so that's going to be 3. For 1, array of 1, which is that 0 and 1, here has 1, here it is, and it says length, it means how many columns. These refer to the columns actually, so of course this is a 3. This is 3 and 3 as well, same things. And here, of course, this is 3, and this is 3. However, if we say array4.length, if you look in here, there's 0, 1, 2, and 3. 4 is outside, so it's going to give you an error, of course. Look at this one, another one. It's called drag arrays in here, and I put this int. Here it is, multidimensional, and it's called matrix. Look at this one. Here's a bracket, open the curly bracket, and I close it here. In between, curly brackets here refer to the rows in here. So I have here's first row, second row, third row, fourth row, and fifth row. So if I say matrix.length, it's going to give me this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is 5. Now, if I say matrix 0, like this, dot length is going to give me how many columns? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Of course, 5. The second one, if it's matrix 1, and dot length is going to give me how many here? So that's 4. And of course, this is 3, and this is 1. How do you deal with these ones, and how do you write a program for this one? This is something I'm going to write it for you, and I'll show you how you can deal with it in Java programming.